Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Red Dead Redemption 2. This is Captain Ron Phillips. How are you guys doing? Boy, what a game this was. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay, the walkthrough with me here as Arthur Morgan and John Marston. This is by far one of the greatest video games I think that has ever been made. One of the greatest stories ever told outside of a book or a movie. I really do. The whole Red Dead Redemption 2 storyline. So, since we finished it, you're probably asking, well, what am I doing here? Well, they're basically just tying up some loose ends. Now, for those of you who do not know, I don't know if I had any on any of my previous videos in Red Dead Redemption 2 here. You can go around towns and you can buy newspapers, and they pretty much catch up with the current events going on in the world, or what's going on that you just previously did in the game, or what's about to come to pass. Kind of gives you an idea of what's going on around. So I've bought every single newspaper, so the newspaper kids aren't listed on the maps no more. So we're going to go into the satchel here, and we're going to go into documents. We're going to go to newspapers, and I'll show you guys some of the newspapers here. The ones we want to worry about are the Blackwater ledgers that say 1907. You can see there on the bottom, because the New Hanover Gazettes and the Saint Denis Times, as you see here, none of them are for the end of the game here, John Marston's time. They are all, those were all bought by Arthur, and they were sitting in his satchel. But what we're doing in this video is we're not going to go over all the newspapers. What we're going to do with the newspapers here is we're going to go through the ones with Marston, the 1907 ones, and we're basically going to be tying up loose ends. We saw some snippets, and we've gotten some ideas of some of the characters and what's happened to them, whether if Marston ran into them, or in the credit scene there we did there at the end of American Venom. And for example, we'll start with the very first one here of 1907. This is the Blackwater Ledger number 72, which is not right, because you can tell 70 and 71 is 1899. They didn't wait 8 years to print another newspaper, so we'll forget about that right now. Don't even worry about the numbers and everything, but we just want to find ones that say 1907. So this is the first newspaper that Marston can buy. And it will discuss stuff that's going around in the world, stuff that's going on locally, stuff that's happening around, or what is going to come to pass. As you can see here, the Panic in 1907, that's about the stock market crashing. President Waxman, that's the U.S. president of the Red Dead Redemption 2 storyline here. Talking about the canal. They're building the Panama Canal. We all know that was actually Teddy Roosevelt. But if we flip this puppy around, we can see something down here a little bit more locally. Romance novel proves bestseller. Now, what is that? Romance novel pulls bestseller. Well, we already did a video about that. Author Leslie DuPont's fourth tome proving very successful. She's also known as Lady of the Manor. And we know that already to be Mary Beth. We already ran into Mary Beth there outside of Valentine, getting on the train, and she gave you a book that's called Lady of the Manor, and it was one of her romance novels. And she's becoming rich and famous as a romance novelist. And so in case you never do run into Mary Beth, this kind of gives you a clue. And we can read this here, but it says her books are lurid and steamy and weave tales of licentious and thievery, love and deceit, murder and mayhem. But it also says there at the end, it has been alleged that she had once consorted with outlaws and gunslingers on the frontier. She has always been unwilling to corroborate these rumors. So we know already that this is Mary Beth, since she gave you the book. But so there, like I said, there are newspapers that you can get throughout the later here that will kind of give you a snippet of what's going on. Small farms disappearing, bounties beware, because there are a lot more lawmen and bounty hunters running around now than there were when the Pinkertons were around trying to come after Arthur and the Vanderlyn gang there. So let's find out here what's next here. Well, we'll go back in the satchel here. Press the wrong button. Sorry, guys. So, we want to go back to 1907. And there'll be the ones on the bottom here. And we're going to go in order, 73. If there's anybody we got to catch up there. Blackwater booming, notorious bad man alive. That's talking about Micah Bell. Oh yes, Evelyn Miller. Now, if we remember Evelyn Miller is the man who introduced us to Rains Fall and Eagle Flies, the Indians that we were helping there. And also, Evelyn Miller is also the man who wrote a book that Dutch Vanderlyn pretty much got his ideas of America and humanity and mankind and all that from. And it basically says here he kind of lost his mind. It says here, social theorist and philosopher Evelyn Miller has resigned for his post from Princeton after increased turmoil regarding his theories on mankind and the savage, meaning the Indian. Announcing that he had become troubled at his own remorseless hypocrisy, the once regaled professor and theorist on what separates the white man from that of the lowly savage left the university in haste and is reported to have retreated to the wilderness to write a book about becoming one with it. Once a fixture at society events in several states, he has long been accused by some of being seduced by fame, with a penchant for entertaining aristocrats in salons with his theories of the rights of man, nature, and the urges of savages. His publisher reports that they have not heard from Mr. Miller in quite some time and are not aware if he is authoring a follow-up work to his best-selling books. Now, if you know, as I said before, we run into Evelyn Miller there in Chapter 4 when we go to Saint Denis there with Arthur, and we run into him there at the party there at the mayor's office that we got invited to by, oh gosh, what's his name? Our mafia dude. What was that?
Bronte.
Yep, by Bronte, thank you. That was my wife there. She got it right there. I couldn't remember. And we also meet him again there outside of a senator's office, and he kind of asks Arthur to kind of help the Indians with whatever they need. And you can run into Evelyn Miller again also as well here as Marston. He shows up as a stranger mission in the middle of tall trees, hiding in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, supposedly writing stuff. Unfortunately, his story doesn't end too well. He's just locked himself up in his cabin, and he's obsessed with trying to write something or get out of his writer's block, to the point where eventually Marston tries to come up and tries to get him up there just to eat something and get out of the house and get some sunlight. And that goes on maybe 2-3 times. Then the last time Marston checks on him, Evelyn Miller apparently starved to death in his cabin. Now, that newspaper won't show that, but that's pretty much what happens to Evelyn Miller. Unfortunately, he kind of lost himself in his mind there, unfortunately. So now the next one, we have a little bit more of knowing of what's going on. The last two. And again, like I said, this is tying up loose ends. This is characters we need to, one that we kind of got an ending for, or we didn't get an ending for. So let's start with number 74 here from the Blackwater Ledger. And you can see right up front is somebody we do not want to see, and that is, unfortunately, Agent Ross. And he has now been awarded his own version of the Pinkerton Agency. It's called the Bureau of Investigation. And he's been given this by the Attorney General of the United States, and it's completely autonomous, headed up by him and him alone, to track down only high-profile and dangerous criminals, and also investigating financial fraud. And it goes under Ross's kind of like bio there. Served many years with the Pinkertons under the mentorship of Agent Milton there. Then went on to work National Bureau of Criminal Identification, founded by the National Chiefs of Police Union in 1896. Billed as one of the most... Now listen to this. Billed as one of the most humble, innovative, and honest law enforcement officers of his class, and colleagues say that Ross produces results where others fail. Upon swearing in, he stated, "I want all criminals to know that here in America, everyone will eventually pay for what they have done." That is very true. Unfortunately, if you do know in the future, which actually in our past, Red Dead Redemption 1, when we deal with Edgar Ross, we do know what he means by everyone will eventually pay for what they have done. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you find your copy of Red Dead Redemption 1 or start looking up some YouTube videos, and you're not going to like what you see. But that is Edgar Ross. Next, now's a small thing here. We could bring this. Not really a character per se, but it does mention to the fact that after we took care of Alberto Fusar in Guarma and his little army there in Guarma, it does mention here that Barbados, Cuba, Guarma, everything is just going nuts down there. As you can see here, shortly after the political unrest in the area, including the assassination of sugar industry advocate and Governor Alberto Fusar, American banking institutions, including J.D. McKnight and Company, took control of the sugar industry on several islands, including Barbados, the Virgin Islands, and Guarma. Fields which once flourished with locally grown foods and were used to feed the island nation suddenly switched to growing sugarcane. As a result of a single crop economy, all foodstuffs are imported to a great expense for local peoples. Foreign investors hired locals to guard and police their massive plantations, subjecting workers to harsh conditions and penalties. Local groups argue that island residents are suffering the most, while businesses say heavy investments by American financial institutions have allowed for the revitalization of the local economies. So you listen to one sort of people, one than the other. So basically, the bankers got wormed their way in and now are running the sugar industry, and Guarma is actually now worse off than it was before with Fusar, if you could believe that, because we saw in chapter 5 exactly what Fusar was about on his island with his little private army and the lengths he was going to just to get rid of a few stowaways on a sunken boat. So a little bit more happier news. Let's do happier. Who are some of the characters we did not even see in the epilogue? Well, how about Reverend Swanson? Y'all remember Reverend Swanson? He just disappeared out of nowhere. Now there is a catch. You do see Reverend Swanson actually leave when you're playing Arthur. There is the mission he does, I think, where he saves the army captain from getting arrested for treason with Charles, and he ends up back at Emerald Ranch, and he's there at the after dropping off. I can't remember his last name now. It's not Captain Morgan, but it starts with an M. It's not Miller. Monroe, Captain Monroe. That's his name, Captain Monroe. He drops him off on the train, gives him some money. Now, depending on Arthur's honor level, if you have perfect or near perfect honor, you will have, who I had on there, the nun, the old lady nun, who also appears in Red Dead Redemption 1. I can't remember her name now for the life of me, but she shows up and you have a real candid and emotional conversation with her for Arthur, because he kind of lets his guard down with her, and he kind of admits that he's afraid that he's got tuberculosis and he's afraid to die, and he's afraid that he's going to die before he's able to get done when he needs to get done. Now, if you do not have perfect honor, if you have mid honor, or if you're playing Arthur as a bad guy, Reverend Swanson will be there at the railroad instead of the old Hispanic nun there who's on her way to Mexico. And you will have a conversation with Reverend Swanson. So Reverend Swanson left the gang during that mission before, I guess, other people did. And he went on, as you see here, to New York. And we'll read this here. Reverend Swanson leads New York Church, delivers powerful message. Reverend Orville Swanson was inducted in his first official capacity as minister at the First Congregational Church of New York this week, having moved the city to accept the position. A service was held and then a reception was given to celebrate the appointment. Encouraging reports from attendees indicate that Reverend Swanson delivered an impassioned and heartfelt sermon about acknowledging sin and seeking redemption. He spoke about his own break from faith, a dark period when he could not attend church, falling into sin, depravity, and wanton gluttony. He chronicled the period where he rediscovered his faith and began witnessing on street corners, to then become assistant pastor at a church in Ohio and now New York. During his recent attendance at the convention meeting of the First Congregational Churches, he delivered a very moving oration, impressing attendees as an eloquent and persuasive speaker, and was almost immediately offered the position. So that's a pretty good ending there for Reverend Swanson, because I don't know, they do not say it in the game, but somewhere you probably have to go on Google or Wikipedia or something. Somebody did mention like the origins of Reverend Swanson. And Reverend Swanson was actually a reverend, I do believe they said out of San Francisco, California, somewhere around San Francisco. And that he, if you remember the mission that we did with Reverend Swanson there, where he's at the train station there in chapter 2, Hosea says that he might have found something for money there. We run into those two idiots there who want us to finish his poker game. And then we have to beat up the sheep farmer and stop the guy, and have to get his foot stuck from off of the train track, or else Arthur and Reverend Swanson were both going to get run over by the train. Swanson has been off and on hooked on morphine and opium and drinking like crazy. Now, apparently, from what happened is before he joined the gang, someone, I don't know where it is, but the story supposedly is that he was a priest or a reverend in San Francisco or somewhere outside of San Francisco. And he mentions there, after you rescue him there on the track, before he passes out and faints and you put him on the back of your horse, there's something about having tea with Margaret. The story is supposedly that in San Francisco, he, as a young pastor, married a woman named Margaret. And he goes to find out that Margaret not only is a thief and a liar and has been stealing from his congregation, but is also only maybe 15 years old. And he was in his mid-20s, maybe 30. And he just lost it from there. I think he was kicked out of the congregation once they found out about it. So if I remember that part right, but I do remember that someone said that the Margaret person he talked about was his wife, that he found out was actually only 14 or 15 years old, and she was a thief and she was stealing from him, and he pretty much fell from grace from there until Dutch found him. So that's pretty much the story. So that's a good story of redemption for Reverend Swanson, I think, there, that he was able to find himself again, and now he has his own church in New York. So I think that's pretty neat. I'm not sure if there's anybody else in this one here. The TALLULAH Jetty gang getting killed? No. No. Oh yes, the bubonic plague is in San Francisco after the earthquake of 1904. That's not good over there. So, okay. So, I guess what we now have left pretty much is the final newspaper that you can buy in the game. Number 75, the one I just bought when I turned this on here. Micah Bell is dead. Ha ha ha. Take that, Micah. And of course they say they have no idea who did it. They think it was some of the gang members from the old Dutch Vanderlyn gang. That they think he stole money from he stole the money from the Blackwater robbery of 1899, and they found out about it. So, said he was believed to have been hiding in the Grizzlies for many years. One of the most notorious outlaws in the region and a former member of the infamous Dutch Vanderlyn gang, was found slain at his hideout. The train robber and desperado evaded authorities for years, during which time he killed nearly 24 men. He had sworn an oath to compatriots that he would never be taken alive. And it says, yet despite a concentrated effort by Rangers, Pinkertons, and local law enforcement to bring Bell to heel, it appears he was completely taken by surprise by former gang members who have long accused him of treachery and theft of the ill-gotten gains from the Blackwater robbery in 1899. Yes and no. Yes, treachery. No, we don't think he stole the money from Blackwater. No, he didn't shut up about still going back over there at every time. Oh, we need to go to Blackwater to collect. Oh, when are we going to get the money from Blackwater? I'm surprised nobody shot him just for not shutting up about the money in Blackwater. But I digress. So, we know what happened to Michael Bell. Yeah, we put a few in his face. Let's see. Next, of course, more stuff from our President Waxman here. On Immigration Act. Let's see here. Okay. Now, as I said before, sometimes these newspapers give you a clue into the future. Man exposes medical frauds as charlatans peddle marvelous claims. Hippocratic oath fakers plaguing small cities. Now, what am I talking about? Let's read this. It was hoped that with the spread of scientific knowledge, the scourge of medical quacks selling health and salvation from suffering would abate eventually. However, in towns and hamlets across the nation, the evolution of reputable physicians into swindlers continues at rapid speed as each new break in scientific progress is announced. A so-called doctor needs little more than a shingle to hang above his door and various potions and concoctions to peddle to the ill, maimed and infirm, who are willing to part with their hard-earned money in hopes of prolonged health. Such is the crusade led by one man who has vowed to uncover the Hippocratic frauds who are preying on victims across the country. His name is Nigel West Dickens, a studied man of letters, botany, ornithology, and the history of home medicine practiced throughout the ages. He has begun demonstrations showing that sufferers of rheumatism, neuralgia, rickets, dysentery, and scarlet fever can be cured of the maladies by use of a simple medicinal tonic. The response has been enthusiastic, and in more than one town the local doctor has taken to task for peddling fraud cures. Mr. Dickens plans in the coming years to take his message on the road and root out charlatans and purveyors of false science. Nigel West Dickens is a gentleman that you will meet 4 years from now in Red Dead Redemption 1, and he has become one of those charlatans and purveyors of false science himself with his simple medicinal tonic that he is selling for hard-earned cash. And he is a fraud. I mean, even the marshal of Armadillo, Marshal Johnson, knows that he's pretty much putting, as he put it, rat piss in a bottle. And it is, he's a complete fraud. And yeah, he is one of the biggest crybabies I've ever met. If you guys want any idea what I'm talking about, go on YouTube, look up Red Dead Redemption, Nigel West Dickens. That's all you need to do. Just the first time you meet him. Nigel West Dickens. And the shenanigans he puts John Marston in is ridiculous. But, yeah. That's a little prelude into the future there. And I do believe, oh yes, minor one. Valentine Hotel Quarantine. Ladies and gentlemen, do you remember when we first got to Valentine in Chapter 2? Mary Beth, Tilly, and Karen all went into the wagon with you with Uncle to ride into town. They're singing their songs. They all got off together to go find some drunken idiots to rob. Stuff like that. Well, Mary Beth found out about the train that we robbed in Scarlet Meadows. Tilly was getting assaulted by Anthony Foreman, the guy who ran the gang that she used to run with. Karen took up a drunken feller into the hotel, and she was going to rob him. In fact, she got punched in the face for it, and we took care of him. There is a part which I did do there. You have Arthur walk into the wrong room, and you see a guy, unfortunately, trying to relieve himself on the throne, and he's not having a very good job at it. And if you keep going back to the Valentine Hotel after that, and you stay for the night or wherever at the hotel, you will hear this same guy in that hotel room over and over and over, whining and crying and trying to get whatever demon is stuck in there out, and it will not come out. That man has now died on the throne, trying to release his demon. More death and discomfort comes as a result of disease of the bowels, from constipation to diarrhea to dysentery, than almost any other cause. It can reflect a disorder of the liver, kidney derangements, and a dyspeptic condition of the stomach, bowels, or bad blood. No person knows the discomfort and agony of bowel disease more than Harville Presley, a resident of the Valentine Hotel for more than 9 years. Visited by numerous physicians and specialists, Mr. Presley scarcely leaves his residence at the hotel, one that he made permanent years ago once the onset of the disease began. The son of a wealthy mining family, Mr. Presley took refuge in the Valentine Hotel, feeling pain after eating at a church potluck supper. The daily plague of sharp, spasmodic gripes of the bowels soon resulted in Mr. Presley living very much like a hermit, summoning doctors and literature and trying to diagnose the cause of his maladies. For reasons of safety, his room is under quarantine, and other guests are placed in lodging in other areas of the hotel so as not to be subjugated to the auditory distress of his complaints. That poor man. I don't know what else to say. That poor man. Oh, man. And I'll never forget, if you guys want to look up the actor who played Arthur Morgan, Roger Clark. He had to, I don't know exactly what he said, but if you ever want to look him up on YouTube and find some of the interviews or the conventions he's at, where they talk about having to film if the player wants to keep going in or going out of these situations. And the fact that that was one of the first things he had to do was to film him going into the door of a guy who said that somebody's in here a second time, to see a guy sitting there on his throne trying to release his demon and having to act that out. It was a funny story. But Roger Clark, he was a trooper. He did it very well. And I do believe, finally, one more. A gentleman's sport. Golfing soars in popularity and generates a tidy profit. Now, who could be getting a tiny profit? Who else than our sad family? We caught a small glimpse of them. Even before Columbus sailed for America, golf was soaring in popularity in the United Kingdom, so much so that archery and other sports that could defend the realm were falling out of favor. Concerned over national security, in 1491, Scotland decreed the sport unlawful for a period of time. In the United States, however, the lovely pastime could not be more popular, especially in California, a state devoted to the entertainment and leisure. Not anymore, they're not. Indeed, this publication received a sunny dispatch from the 31st state that New Hanover's very own Edith Downs has developed and opened a brand new golf course to much acclaim and fanfare. She and her son Archie have of late ventured into several businesses out west, which is a very distant lifestyle from her past as a rancher's wife. Mrs. Downs took Arthur's money, got out of Annisburg at the end, towards the end of chapter 6. Probably never forgiving Arthur for what happened to Mr. Downs, and was able to get herself into opening businesses and is now the proud owner of a huge widely popular golf course country club in California. Congratulations to her and her son Archie. Because God knows that woman went through a lot in this one game here. So congratulations to Edith Downs and her son Archie for being able to do the right thing and not get caught under any kind of bad situation after Arthur helping him out that last time. So hopefully Arthur, if he would have lived to find that out, at least there would be some closure there for him. At least Arthur was able to check on the widow Charlotte, north of Annisburg, who accidentally poisoned her husband making a berry pie with poisonous berries. At least he was able to see the fruits of that labor, seeing her hunting, eating, taking care of herself, planting a garden, and she was able to take care of herself better than anything. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, the governor of California has amended the Pharmacy and Poison Act, making it a crime to sell opiates of cocaine without a prescription. The new ruling was protested by several vocal advocates and users of cocaine. If only that were the case. If only you could get cocaine with a prescription. Gavin Newsom might not be governor because there'd be a lot more happier people there. But I digress again. And the world's fastest steam-powered car broke speed record in good old Florida. Steam-powered automobiles are all the rage these days. Shovel in some coal, light the pilot, fill up the boiler with water, and in 20 to 30 minutes you are able to motor on out to your destination. Mechanic Herschel Bennett has broken the land speed record in his amazing marvel of modern engineering, the Stratton Steamer. Modified from the consumer model of the Stratton Motor Carriage Company, he took it to a beach in Florida where a crowd cheered as he reached 127.66 miles per hour, the fastest any human has traveled, and I guarantee you 110% he went to Daytona. So, that is pretty much that. Oh my goodness, it is dark outside. I've been standing out here for a while. So that pretty much ties up all the loose ends that we haven't seen throughout the epilogue there with John, because we ran into Sadie, we ran into Uncle, we got Abigail and Jack back, we ran into Charles, we took care of Michael Bell, but Dutch Vanderlyn showed up at the end, and we ran into Evelyn, we ran into Stranger Evan Miller, Rainsfall showed up in the credits, Pearson's here, Mary Beth is here, Tilly we saw got married to a rich man in Saint Denis and has a family now. I know we found out about Swanson, Mrs. Downs, a couple other minor people. Now to note, there are some characters that they did not mention, and I'm going to talk about them right now. First one is Karen. Karen, as far as I know to this date, nobody knows in the game what happened to Karen after they all dispersed and left the gang at Beaver Hollow. It is rumored that Karen did not go far and probably died of alcohol poisoning, but nobody knows. There is nothing anyone could find out about Karen, as far as I know, unless there was something that came from any of the speech or the audio files when Red Dead Redemption 2 got its PC release. So people were able to get into debug mode and find out some of the audio files or some of the speech notes that were made for the game but had switches in them to keep them from starting, because it was something that they put into the game but also didn't finish. So it is something that you're able to do in debug mode when you get a game for a PC after it's a major console releases. You find out stuff that was supposed to happen or weren't supposed to happen that was partially programmed in, but they're like, no, and they couldn't take it out. It's something like that. But we do not know what happened to Karen Jones, unfortunately. Now, the other main two characters, if anybody is curious, we know they're in Red Dead Redemption 1, but they are not mentioned. Bill Williamson and Javier Escuela. There is no mention of them, no notice of them, nothing. here in the epilogue after we lose them there in Beaver Hollow, after John and Arthur kind of like make their stand against Dutch and Micah. In Red Dead Redemption 1, Marston is kind of halfway captured by Edgar Ross, and he has tasked Marston to eliminate the remaining members of the Vanderlyn gang, or what, I don't know what he said, whatever, or else to him. Edgar Ross did kidnap Abigail and Jack to make John do his bidding. Why they left Uncle alone is beyond me. I guess he didn't think much of Uncle himself. But Edgar Ross did come to get, as we saw him there in the credits, he did find the Marstons. He will eventually make his move in 1911, which is when Red Dead Redemption takes place, 4 years from now. And he will kidnap or take into custody Abigail and Jack in order to make Marston do his bidding. And the first person he sends out to is, in New Austin, Bill Williamson, who has a gang of his own now. And you'll get some help from people out there and the marshal. And you'll eventually chase Bill out of New Austin into Mexico, and you'll take care of him there. But he is also aided in Mexico by the military for some reason, who is also partially being aided and helping Javier Escuela. Now, it's interesting to note that Javier is in America fleeing from Mexico and the authorities. I do believe he fell in love with a rich person's wife. And I know I'm going to get this wrong. I think he mentioned it in around a campfire before, in a campfire story, that he fell in love with a rich man's wife, and they got caught, and either Javier killed the rich man, or the rich man trying to kill Javier accidentally killed his wife and blamed it on Javier. It's one of the two. And Javier had to run from Mexico, and he's been hiding in the U.S., and that's when he joined Dutch's gang. Now, he is back in Mexico, hiding, and he's kind of lost his mind after what happened with Arthur and what happened with Dutch there. So he's not exactly 100%. And to be fair, and I'm kind of glad they didn't do this. Bill and Javier, they are not together in Red Dead Redemption 1. You will not see the two of them together. So even though Javier and Bill are kind of helping each other, they're still not, I guess, in the mood to be around each other. So that's pretty much what's left of them. So Bill has his own big gang now, almost kind of like how Micah did here in here at the end of 2. And you'll have to chase him down and track him down for Edgar Ross. And then also in Mexico, you'll run into Javier Escuela. You'll get some help, and you won't get some help. And by the time you come back and you take care of Bill, you take care of Javier. As you turn in Javier at the border to Edgar Ross tells you that Dutch Vanderlyn, of all people, has shown back up again in tall trees after not being seen for many years. Now, we know that he showed up there to help us with Micah. I don't think Ross and them knew that Dutch Vanderlyn was there. So, as far as Ross knows, Dutch has not been seen since 1899, so for about 12 years. And it is also interesting to note that there at the end of Chapter 6, Dutch was helping, quote-unquote helping, eagle flies with the Indians and their situation against the army, and for his own benefit. And you go from there to Red Dead Redemption. Dutch does not have a gang, but he has an army of Indians. So is that maybe the last of the tribe that Eagle Flies was leading in that assault on Cornwall, Kerosene, and Tar? I have no idea, but I wouldn't put it past them. So that is pretty much tying up all the loose ends here in Red Dead Redemption 2. We saw pretty much if there's anybody I missed, by all means, guys, leave it in the comments below, and I will definitely get with you, back with you about that. But I'm pretty sure we've got everybody. If there's any characters that I missed, please, like I said, by all means, let me know, and I'll see if I could oblige you there. See if even if I know if that would have happened to them. I mean, they don't go back and cover everybody, but some of the main ones they do. So again, I want to thank you guys very much for this little video here. This went a little bit longer than I thought it would. I thought this was going to be a quick read, but it's just, this game is just so vast and so much is going on. You just can't read a newspaper and be like, oh, that's what happened to that person. So thank you very much again for joining me here in this quick little, just to tie up loose ends here about certain characters. And I wish two things that players have played this game, three things that players wish that they got out of this game. One, we wish we knew what happened to Karen, if we haven't already. Two, and even the actors have said this, we still don't know what happened on that boat in Blackwater. It is, as far as it has not been filmed, it has not been scripted outside of what they've said. They still don't know, action for action, move for move, word for word, what all happened on the boat in Blackwater. Kind of like how we know what happened in the bank in Saint Denis, is what they mean by that. We don't know how it started, how they got on, how smooth everything went, or even why Dutch shot that woman Heidi McCord to begin with. We don't know, and neither do the actors. So that's kind of a crime, I think. And the third one, of course, for us players, something we wish we could get out of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Fine day to you.
Fine day to you too, sir. Is the feeling that we got from playing this game for the very first time. You just can't replicate it. As many times as you can play this game, nothing will ever beat the first time you ever played this and saw this. And that's just something all of us Red Dead players wish we could do, is somehow turn back time and put that disc in the console for the first time and start seeing it for the first time, because this, like I said, this is just an awesome game, an awesome story with such a vast world and great characters and a true American epic.
Hey.
So I'm glad the horse was here to be all right while I was reading my newspapers to you all. Thanks again for joining me as we were tying up loose ends. This is Captain Ron Phillips. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. There is 2 more videos I plan to do with Red Dead Redemption 2, and then I will be done with Red Dead Redemption 2. One, I plan to possibly do a live video of going into New Austin, where the Red Dead Redemption 1 will take place, because we only did one mission that really kind of took us into New Austin, and we only kind of went halfway through Hennigan's Stead. We didn't even go through McFarland's Ranch, and we just went through Pike's Basin, and that was about it. We didn't see Armadillo, we didn't see Tumbleweed, we didn't see Rathskeller Fork, we didn't see Fort Mercer. So we could do, I plan on probably doing that maybe live and seeing what all's out there. And also, finally, I have a few requests, especially from a friend of mine, Necrassen. I hope you guys, I'm gonna put his name here on the screen here. If you guys like Skyrim or Civilization, he's got his own channel there. I encourage everybody to go watch him. He's really good there. He plays Skyrim on Steam, and he has a lot of mod reviews. And give him a check. I'm gonna have his name here on the right here. But yeah, I've gotten requests to go back to Arthur and his final mission, which is sure enough called Red Dead Redemption, and show what happens to Arthur if he decided to not join John and help him escape, but took the key that Abigail gave him to go find the gang money box and take the money behind Dutch's back. I don't know what he would have thought by doing that, or what how far he thought he was going to get. But I have a request to do that video so you guys can see how that ended up between Arthur and Dutch and Micah. Very different from when you help John escape from the Pinkertons. So, thanks again, everybody. This is Captain Ron Phillips. Hit that like button, guys. and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.